Since 2 days, Lotta, you've been here in Berlin, and your seminars were quite exciting, and one was about complexity and simplicity. If you tell us a little bit about this.
It's a topic that interests me a lot because I feel a thirst for simplicity. And I think that I might not be alone having that thirst, seeing how the world is developing with more and more options. I don't know how it is in Germany, but in Sweden we nowadays get the invitations to select what kind of energy company we want to use, what electricity. We must become experts in all these fields. Before it wasn't like that.
Do you think these are too many choices for human beings?
Definitely. What I'm seeing is a world that is very advanced. We have a lot of technology, but what I also feel we use a lot of technology just to create many different of the same. So there is a competition amongst the telephones, for example. You develop a new version every year. But not only new versions, but there's so many different brands. So if you want to buy a telephone, you cannot just go into the shop and ask, I need this, and then he will say, you have to use this. But he will say, okay, you have this option, and then he starts to speak a language that you don't know. So then you have to go home and read and understand, what is he talking about? And I believe I'm not alone, feeling it takes a lot of my time to make a choice.
So you think one can use time in a better way?
Of course.
In which way?
I think maybe it's not only me who wants a simpler life, and only 100 years back, life was simpler because we were dealing with life more directly, not indirectly. In a smartphone you have so many apps, and you get also an opportunity to use many different apps for the same use, with different brands. So it's easy to get lost in a forest of choices, even wanting to do one simple activity.
If we go back to this example 100 years back, people didn't have hardly any choice. Do you think this is better? This is preferable?
It's a good question you're asking. It's maybe not that what I'm wanting to have less choices from that perspective of poverty. But what I see today is that we have many more choices that is not connected to our needs. It's more connected to desires. And I think that is actually the reason why we have so many extra choices, is created out of desires and the multiple desires that it grows into. It's like a tree that grows many branches of more desires, but it's not our needs.
What are needs? What do you describe as needs?
So,
for example, with a telephone?
Yeah, telephone need, basic need is communication. And so, for my communication, I wouldn't need all of these extra apps, for example. And they could be a choice, then people can ask me back, well, you can choose what apps you want. And it's possible, but still I have to learn so many different things to remove apps from my phone. And so, when it comes to basic human needs, it's a need for contact. I have a need to communicate. But I don't have a need for all these extra things in order to be able to communicate.
So if we stick to this example with a smartphone, is there a need for a smartphone, or is this a desire? Or are the applications desires? What's the desire and what's the need in this thing?
Yeah, I feel it's a good question in the sense that when I use a device, it's good for me to ask, what is my real need connected to this? And I think a smartphone is fantastic because it can be used for very good means. But I can also get lost in it. So I have to ask myself the question, what is my need, and when do I get sidetracked into some pop-up windows who offer me something, who attracts me to an image, and I start to follow that, and I look at my watch and said, but I wasn't supposed to, I was supposed to do something else, and now I'm sidetracked by what I see in the image. So it's I find that smartphones have a good use, but I need to be very clear about my needs, and I also need discipline in order to not be sidetracked.
And as you're a meditation teacher, does meditation help maybe to use such a device in a better way or
yes,
way?
I do feel it helps, and I can see from day to day that when I'm more in balance and when I'm more satisfied inside, there is less risk that I get sidetracked and start to follow things that pops up in my smartphone, or if I'm using Facebook, for example. I'm more clear about where I'm going, and I'm less prone to be distracted. But when I don't, those days I don't feel completely happy or I'm tired, etc., then it's more easy for me to get sidetracked by some scenes, some images that come up. And I think this is general for any person if they meditate or not. So I'm more easily to be distracted when I feel weak, and when I feel strong inside, it's less risk I get distracted, and then I can be more purposeful how I use the technology that I'm using. And that makes, if I'm using a technology like Facebook for a good purpose, and I have an aim that I've been thinking for myself, then it can be very useful. I can serve a lot of people through a means to that, like that. So I'm not against social media, I'm not against smartphones, but very aware that we get attached to it, and then we get dependent. And dependency, we can see a lot. Because if I'm not happy inside, I go to my smartphone immediately.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much, Lotta.